Here at JGilbo 11, breaking down some GPP bats for today's slate. I've got a larger than usual Thursday slate, but obviously it's broken up once again. I got Clayton Kershaw on the hill, Chris Archer, and then after that, it's kind of a lot of guys a few that I don't want to pick on, and then kind of a few that you can really get after. Ownership's going to be a little bit tricky tonight, just because some of these bats we might not be able to afford in those Kershaw lineups without sacrificing a ton. But there's a lot of good value. I'm going to be kind of sticking this mid-range for upside, and also a couple of value guys in the outfield that I'll be considering. So jumping right into it, we're looking at catcher. Wellington Castillo's the guy I'll take a look at. 45% line drive rate against lefties this year, 328 WOBA, which is obviously below his career norm against left-handers, but everything kind of checks out. Still hitting the ball incredibly hard. You look at Happ this year. This has been a guy who, has kind of overperformed. The strikeout rate's actually not bad this year, but still 1.46 home runs per nine to right-handers is still an issue. So I'll take a look at some of these Baltimore bats that are priced down, but I'm not going to go completely overboard on them. In terms of other guys, Gary Sanchez is your obvious catcher option in terms of upside. 269 ISO, 410 WOBA against right-handers this year. Going up against James Shields, well, you know what to do already. Incredible home run to fly ball ratio for Shields really over the last few years. A high total there for the Yankees. Even with that lineup that's a little bit watered down right now, some of these guys are really in play. And we get some of them that are actually at a pretty good discount too. So it's not like the Yankee stack is really all that expensive tonight outside of Judge and Sanchez. But yeah, catcher pretty weak. If we get someone that's up in the lineup like a JT Realmuto, I don't mind him. But it's all going to be one that I just want to see where lineup's at if we get a bottom half guy that moves up a little bit. Because other than that, catcher is not a high upside spot going this evening. First base, I like Jose Abreu here. Luis Cessa is a guy I can target against. Small sample size in the majors. His minor league numbers aren't anything that I shine away from. Abreu's always a guy who just kind of goes overlooked. He has a 183 ISO against righties this year. Oddly enough, hasn't hit a home run at home this year, which is a little bit weird, but definitely not going to take any stake in that. It's a good ballpark. Looking like it's going to be friendly in terms of weather. You'll get that rain again, but should play, and hopefully that even lowers ownership even more. But like Abreu, he always kind of gets glossed over. Justin Bour's another one, 240 ISO against righties this year, and this is a good spot. Seth Lugo has struggled a little bit with left-handers, 351 WOBA allowed in a small sample size. Really low ground ball rate, doesn't strike out, doesn't miss a ton of bats either. And Bour, really decent run total to go after there in Miami. So I'll be kind of looking there for a couple of these guys, especially with their prices over on DK. Justin Smoke, he's the other first base option you can take a look at. 376 WOBA, 288 ISO. Jimenez really struggles with lefties, 435 WOBA. 3.67 home runs per nine. The only problem is Toronto's heavily right-handed. Kendrys Morales and Justin Smoke are the only two guys, but I'll lean on the Smoke side. He'll gain higher ownership than Morales, so if you want to make that contrarian pivot, you can definitely go that way. Eric Sogard, we're going to second base here, 430 WOBA against righties this year. Friendly ballpark for power. Homer Bailey obviously got shelled in his first start. Didn't have the command. This guy's really never been that great anyway. I like the Brewers stack tonight. I like these bats 1 through 6. In a good spot there. Run total over 5. There's going to be a lot of upside. I'll look at Sogard because second base is another weak spot. Where I'm just kind of floating around in that mid-range. D. Gordon is the other one I'll take a look at. As I said, Seth Lugo just doesn't miss many bats, allows some hits to lefties. And you look at Gordon, he has that stolen base upside. That's really all that you're after there. Third base, low Travis Shaw, 369 WOBA, 280 ISO against righties. He just continues to just mash the ball in his ballpark. He's in such a good spot. Against Bailey, love the matchup. A little bit pricier than what we've been dealing with the last few days, but that should still keep that ownership down. And I think if you're actually looking for value, Manny Machado still hitting lefties pretty well this year, 348 WOBA, 250 ISO. Against Happ, not a bad history. I could definitely see him doing well, but for 3,900 at DK, You're getting a high upside third baseman still at a cheaper price. Expect him to be a little bit popular, but a lot of people are just kind of done. I think actually people will take a look at Happ instead of these Baltimore bats. Moving over to shortstop, Didi Gregorius back into the lineup. This is a guy who was hitting really well. 3.39 WOBA against righties this year, 200 ISO. Friendly ballpark. James Shields, 404 WOBA to lefties this year. Small sample size, 3.18 homers per 9. But you could date back to last year. He's allowing over a 350 WOBA to both sides of the plate. So Gregorius actually a really nice price tag on DraftKings. Below 4K. I like the upside there, probably hitting 5th or 6th with this lineup being what it is. And I think if you're looking to make a pivot off of Gregorius, you can look at Asdrubal Cabrera. Similar numbers, worse ballpark though. But you look at this one, Mets Marlins have a total near 10. Probably a sneaky place to garner some ownership. Guys below about 10, 15%. So I don't mind going there, especially with the value. Because you just look at like moving to the outfield here. Christian Yelich, he's way too cheap. You got Stanton, you got Ozuna, who are not expensive at all. And just looking at that upside of really that front five there against Lugo is very, very much in play. But you also have a couple of bats that are, platoon. You're going to get Joey Ricard, who's leading off against lefties, 340 WOBA, over 340 WOBA in his career against southpaws. In that same game, Jose Bautista continues to still be really cheap on DraftKings. Price tag on FanDuel is obviously a little bit higher, but he's reverse splits, 352 WOBA, 209 ISO. He's actually hit up pretty well in that leadoff spot. I don't mind him as kind of that one lone off righty for the Jays. Jimenez is just the guy to really pick on. Haven't talked about any Red Sox, and I think it's just because of the lack of power. I don't mind the outfield here. I mean, Gibson is awful. 395 WOBA to righties this year. 399 WOBA to lefties. The hard contact's up a ton. Love Mookie Betts, obviously, if you can afford them. But, I don't mind going down to like Benintendi, JBJ. Both have ISOs over 170 against right-handed pitching this year. JBJ just hits everything hard. So I don't mind just kind of going to the well with those outfielders, especially getting that discount. Sox are in play, but this is just not an offense with a ton of power right now. And, I love Mitch Moreland. Fenway's just not a great place for lefty power, too. So, I don't know. I mean, Sox are just one of those teams where Kyle Gibson can give you 10 runs on any given night. But, we've seen the Sox team just kind of flail around most nights out. So, I like those guys, but that's just more price accordingly. Aaron Hicks, he's questionable, but due back tonight, 387 WOBA, 213 ISO against righties this year. Hicks will be an extreme value on this slate, below 4K on DraftKings. He was up near in high 4s earlier before he went down, and you look at even elsewhere, Brett Gardner, Jacoby Ellsbury, all in play there, hitting in the top half of that lineup. So Yankees, good spot against James Shields. Expect them to be popular, but definitely one of the higher upside teams on the slate. Last guy in the outfield, Hunter Renfroe, getting a lefty there in Petco. Obviously, Petco's a downgrade, but Renfroe, 393 WOBA, 254 ISO against southpaws this year. Has a ton of power. He's a guy who's just kind of go overlooked, but a really, really cheap bat who does strike out a ton. But he does allow some flexibility in that lineup with Kershaw. You can kind of get some bats in there with them. So that's kind of things up here with me. You can head over to DaveFantasyCap.com, check out our tools and content.